Move out of the way. You're blocking a pregnant woman, Alicia said as she gently stroked her belly like she was cradling something precious. I stared at her for a second, unsure what to say. They say pregnant women glow and become softer, more motherly, but Alicia's face held nothing like that. Her eyes were sharp, cold, and cruel. I quickly looked at David, hoping he'd say something, but he didn't. You can sleep in the storage room, Alicia added casually, as if offering me a cup of tea. David nodded, agreeing without hesitation. That was the moment something inside me broke. My love for him, which I had carried for so many years, just vanished. It disappeared, like a gust of wind blowing out a candle. I still felt a tiny thread of emotion, but it wasn't love, just a tired sadness that left me feeling hollow. All right then, I replied quietly. David smiled, actually smiled, and reached for Alicia's hand. She looked up at him with dreamy eyes, like they were in some romantic movie. The sight burned. My sadness quickly turned into anger, bubbling in my chest like a pot about to boil over. I'll leave by tomorrow, I said. David laughed lightly and waved his hand like I was nothing more than a guest overstaying my welcome. Yeah, actually, maybe you should sleep out tonight. This is mine and Alicia's home now. I gave a small nod, turned around, and walked out the door. As I stepped outside, the evening breeze touched my face, and strangely, I smiled, not out of joy, but maybe out of disbelief at how far things had fallen. My name is Catherine Taylor. I'm 46 years old, a housewife. Most people would think I'm just a regular middle-aged woman who enjoys drinking coffee and cleaning the house. But there's more to me than that. I used to work hard before I got married, and even now, I've kept a hobby that became a quiet strength over the years: investing. I started small, way before I met David. I read books, studied markets, and put aside little bits of money. Over time, it grew. Now, the dividends I receive are enough to let me enjoy brunch at fancy hotels and spend afternoons at spas. It's not a glamorous life, but it's a comfortable one. I never had to ask David for money. David, my husband, is 6 years younger than me. He works as a salesman for a big company. He's put on weight over the years and carries a strong smell of sweat and cigarettes lately, but he's always been smooth with words. That's probably what made him good at sales. Despite how he looks now, I used to find something lovable in him. Maybe it was the way he reminded me of a silly mascot. I even defended him when others teased his size. I thought he was adorable. We have a daughter named Emily. She's stunning, both in looks and personality. She has her father's sharp features and a model-like body, but her strength, humility, and discipline came from somewhere else. She's top of her class, athletic, kind. People always said it was like two geese raised a swan. David and I spoiled her, and honestly, maybe we were a little overprotective. I knew David had a weakness for younger women. I wasn't blind, but he chose me, an older woman, and for many years, he was a loving husband and father. I thought I could overlook a wandering gaze. I didn't think he'd ever go beyond that. We lived in a condo for years, a spacious one with 4 bedrooms, but it was getting old, and the maintenance fees were about to go up. Around the same time, Emily moved into an apartment near her university, and one of my relatives offered me a house to inherit. It was smaller, only 2 bedrooms, but cozy. We renovated it with retirement in mind. One room became a guest room and study, and we figured we could always adjust it if Emily ever needed to come back home. After we moved, David started coming home later and later. He always had an excuse: dinners, work events, meetings. On weekends, he disappeared for errands. When he did come home, he smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. We had separate beds, but even being in the same room as him became unbearable. I quietly moved into the study and didn't say a word. When it came time to notify people about the move, I handled everything. I sent cards to my friends and family, and even took care of David's side, since he always avoided that sort of thing. My own parents had passed away long ago, so I didn't have many people left to tell. I didn't bother reaching out to anyone from my father's side, especially not Alicia. Alicia is my half-sister. She's 14 years younger than me. When I was in 7th grade, my mom died. 6 months later, my dad remarried. Alicia was already 2 years old by then. I thought they had both brought children into a new marriage, but 5 years later, my dad and his new wife died in an accident. At the funeral, I learned the truth, that Alicia was their child, that my dad had secretly been in love with this woman all along, and that my mother had basically been a substitute, introduced by her boss. After that, Everything made sense. Why Alicia got everything: fancy clothes, big birthday parties, her own room. Meanwhile, I was doing chores, cooking, cleaning, working part-time jobs. All the money I earned was taken. My room was a tiny storage space under the stairs. I had to beg for things other kids took for granted. By the time Alicia was in grade school, she started looking down on me. She'd heard stories about my mom and began treating me like I didn't belong. I finally saved enough to move out on my own. I never contacted Alicia again. I didn't invite her to my wedding. I never told her about Emily. As far as I was concerned, we were strangers. So imagine my shock when the doorbell rang one quiet afternoon, a few weeks after we'd moved in. I was sipping tea, relaxing, when I heard the intercom. A man's voice said, "Delivery." On the screen, I saw someone in a cap. Looking down, I assumed it was a package David had ordered and opened the door. "Alicia?" I gasped. "Hey, sis, long time no see," she said with a smug smile, lifting her head. She brushed past me and walked into the house like she owned it, plopping down on the couch. "I figured you wouldn't open the door if you knew it was me," she said cheerfully, "so I used a delivery recording. Smart, right?" I glared at her, and she backed away, pretending to be scared, but I could see the grin behind her act. "I just came to visit," she added, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "You never even knew where I lived. Why now?" I asked coldly. She kept smiling. "Well, I got married, but my husband's always away on business. It gets lonely, and now that I'm pregnant, it's harder to get around. Everyone said I should come stay with you, so here I am." "Go home, Alicia. I don't want anything to do with you," I said firmly. She stretched out on the couch. "Too bad. I came ready to stay." The nerve of her, sitting there with that smirk, talking like she belonged. My blood boiled. And that was just the beginning. "Just breathe," I whispered to myself. Alicia had just accused me of being mean, again, and thrown in a dig about being the daughter of a kleptomaniac. That last comment pushed me over the edge. "Get out. I never want to see your face again," I screamed. That was when David walked through the front door. His sudden arrival caught me off guard. He looked confused and slightly amused. "What's going on? People outside can hear you," he said casually, like he had just come home from a regular day. Before I could answer, Alicia walked over to him and slipped her arm into his like it was the most natural thing in the world. David didn't pull away. In fact, he smiled. "Oh, Alicia, you're here," he said warmly. "Welcome." Alicia pouted like a little girl. "Your sister was being so mean to me," she said. "I thought maybe I could stay here with you until the baby is born. Is that okay?" David beamed. "Of course, you're always welcome here. You can stay as long as you want." I stood frozen. Watching them made my stomach turn. There was a strange closeness between them, something that didn't feel right. "David, what's going on?" I finally asked. Instead of answering me seriously, he laughed. "You're just jealous of my cute little sister." His words cut deep. I had told him everything about my family before we got married. He knew my past, my pain, and now he was siding with her. He pointed toward the guest room and said, "We have a spare bed. You can sleep there, Alicia." But Alicia had other plans. She smiled sweetly and said she wanted to share a room with him. David didn't object. Later, I peeked into their room through a small crack in the door. My heart sank. They were holding each other like a couple in love. Alicia leaned into David and giggled. "The baby is thrilled, living with Daddy." And then they kissed. Tears ran down my cheeks. I was no longer a wife. I had been reduced to a stranger in my own home. After that day, they treated me like a housemaid. I didn't argue. I stayed quiet and started gathering evidence. I was already planning my next move. One day, Alicia looked at me with disgust and told me to leave the room because she needed space. David backed her up. That was the moment something in me shut off. Any lingering love I had for David disappeared. "I'll leave tomorrow," I said calmly. David didn't hesitate. "Actually, it'd be better if you left tonight. This is Alicia's home now too." I just nodded, letting them laugh behind me as I walked out the door. That night, I checked into a hotel and started making plans. The next morning, I arranged for a moving company and went to City Hall to start the process of divorce. I couldn't sleep, but it wasn't sadness, it was anticipation. When I got back to the house, the movers were already there, but the house was nearly empty. All that was left was a small box with a note and a few of my things, thrown together like trash. David's wedding ring sat at the bottom. The house was a mess. There were signs everywhere that David and Alicia had made themselves comfortable. I had the movers pack up everything that belonged to them. Then I found a note on the table. They were on a 6-day trip abroad and asked for the house to be cleaned before they got back. The note also said the divorce would be finalized when they returned. David's arrogance was unbelievable, but it worked in my favor. I had the movers finish packing. Then I placed David's wedding ring on the kitchen counter. I didn't want anything that reminded me of him. Later, I bought a small apartment near my daughter Emily's university. It was just 1 bedroom, but it felt like peace. When David and Alicia returned, they called me non-stop. I didn't answer, until I finally picked up, pretending to be calm. "What the hell is going on?" David yelled. "What do you mean?" I asked. "The house is gone." I laughed. "It was my house, David, built with my money. If I'm not going to live there, why keep it?" He was stunned, but we were living there. "Don't worry," I said. "Your things are in a storage unit. I'll text you the code." He tried to argue, but I reminded him, the house was in my name. He hadn't contributed a single cent. David started pleading. He said the baby was his niece or nephew, and that Alicia was in a tough spot. That's when I told him I knew everything, ever since Alicia moved in. I even had recordings from a fancy baby monitor Alicia had demanded, which captured their nighttime conversations. He went silent. I told him to check the mailbox. There, he found official letters, about payments and legal notices. He threatened to talk to a lawyer. I told him to go ahead and hung up. I blocked his number after that. My old phone, the one with all the evidence, was now kept safe and silent. A day later, I got a call on my new number from a relative, probably someone Alicia sent. "You should apologize to Alicia. She's pregnant," the voice scolded me. I stayed calm. "Why should I apologize to the woman who cheated with my husband?" I asked. "She's the one who owes me." When they insulted me, I responded with equal fire. I reminded them of Alicia's betrayal and told them never to contact me again. After that, I called my lawyer. I was ready to finish this. At the lawyer's office, David and Alicia looked stunned. I handed them the divorce papers, along with a copy of our marriage license. "If you sign today, I'll reduce your compensation penalty," I said. David grabbed the pen and signed right away. Alicia followed, still smirking. But then I revealed that the divorce had already been finalized through mediation. They had ignored the notices, and now it was done. Their faces fell. I dropped one last bomb. David might not even be the father of the child. If he refused a paternity test, he'd still have to pay child support. David looked pale. Alicia was speechless. He tried to win me back, using Emily as an excuse. That's when the door opened. Emily stepped inside. She looked straight at her father. "I'm done with you," she said coldly. "I'm staying with Mom." Alicia looked like she'd been slapped. Emily didn't stop. She called Alicia, that loose woman, and told David she was ashamed of him. I told them both that the house, the car, and the money were mine. Alicia's dreams of living comfortably with David were gone. I walked out with Emily and my lawyer. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. That night, Emily and I had dinner together. It was simple but comforting. I finalized the divorce paperwork. A few months later, David and Alicia got married, after her remarriage waiting period ended. Funny enough, the witness signatures included me and Alicia's ex-husband, who had helped me with key information. News spread that David lost his job after misusing company funds for their little vacations. He now works odd jobs. Alicia is stuck at home with a baby, struggling financially after being dumped again. Meanwhile, I've been living a quiet life, supported by my investments. Emily is thriving at college. And surprisingly, I've grown close to Alicia's ex-husband. He calls me Catherine now. Lately, he asked to meet up, to talk about something important. As I sit at my vanity, cheeks flushed, I smile. I haven't felt this way in a long time, like a young woman again, on the edge of something new.